All right, everybody. Welcome to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you for joining us here on the set. We are going to dive right in because I got a lot to say. We're going to keep it balanced and keep it, compact. But, man, I have been reflecting on the last podcast that we just did, and I went back and looked at some podcasts in 2020. At the height of all of this melee that was going on in the United States of America and even beyond. And I looked at some of the comments. I remember some of the in-person conversations with friends, associates, colleagues. And if you guys remember 2020-ish, right there dead in the summer, moving forward from May 2020, even all the way up to the present day in 2022, to put it lightly, there was a disruption. The disruption was the murder of George Floyd. Y'all remember George Floyd when he got murdered by Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The 8 minutes and 46 seconds that will forever reign in infamy in the United States of America turned out to be a flashpoint in America. And while everybody on both sides, everybody from every different ethnicity and people, in law enforcement, not in law enforcement, people in politics, not in politics, if you sit there and you viewed that video, everybody, and I say everybody, you got some fringe people on the side, but anybody with any sense came to the same conclusion that Derek Chauvin murdered that man, George Floyd, on that fateful day in May of 2020, which brought about a exercise of the First Amendment rights that have never been seen before in America. And as somebody that watched it, I was deeply troubled by what I saw. And man, I was all on board. I connected with people from all different walks of life. Many of my colleagues on the other side, Caucasian, Hispanic, Asian, roundtable discussions, talking to civic leaders, talking to police captains, police chiefs, police personnel, sitting down having the conversations and, really getting involved about how we can do some systematic change to help balance this thing that we have in America. And man, I was all on board. I was all on board because what I saw was egregious. But if you remember in 2020, maybe around August to September, I really began to start getting really perplexed about how the movement was progressing. And I saw the movement taking a shape that was not about the original intent. And therefore, I was highly skeptical about the new direction of the movement. And then the Black Lives Matter, which was always in existence, and I say always since 2013 with Trayvon Martin, but it was more on the fringe. George Floyd really brought the Black Lives Matter organization to the forefront of American politics, American conversation. The George Floyd thing, it really mushroomed in 2020. And when it started in 2013 with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, it was mainly just a black movement. It was black people saying that Black Lives Matter. Okay, it was a fringe organization, to put it mildly. But in 2020, with George Floyd, it mushroomed into this organization that was well beyond what anybody could imagine, especially the three founders of Black Lives Matter. And it moved outside of just a black person saying Black Lives Matter to white, Hispanic, and every other creed saying that Black Lives Matter. The sentiment itself, I agreed with. And I did several podcasts back in 2020, at the end of 2020, not the end, maybe around August to September, October, right around that time, to really begin to start to investigate this thing called Black Lives Matter, because it really began to define what people was doing. And I was a little bit concerned, and by a little bit, I mean a lot concerned. So I began to start doing these podcasts, and I began to start doing these live, Facebook Lives and doing the research about Black Lives Matter. And let me tell you something. I am a black man. I have always been black. I've been black all 49 years of my life. But I had black people, black friends, black associates who claimed that I was not a part of the cause, that I was not on board with the progression of Black America. Even though I'm black, even though I'm married to a black woman, have black kids, have been in this black skin all of my life, have shared the experience of Black America every single day of my life. Because I didn't buy wholeheartedly into this Black Lives Matter thing, I got called everything under the sun. The comments were blowing up. People was like, oh, you don't understand. This was egregious. This was that. This was that. This is finally our time to take our position in American society. And I was just simply telling people to pump the brakes and to do your own research. Now, here we are 2 years later. I'm not just saying this. The IRS is saying this. I'm not just saying, and I'm not going to put it in neon lights that I was right. But Black Lives Matter, the organization, is a scam. It is an absolute scam. I'm not just saying this now. The IRS is saying this. Black people are saying this. Black civic leaders are saying this. And last week, I gave you some information about why I stood against this organization, because I believed it was all for a money grab. And that money grab has been realized in 2022. Don't take my word for it. Simply look at the IRS filings of Black Lives Matter, BLM, and come to your own conclusion. So when I said, hold on, everybody, hold on. Tell me how this organization is bettering the black community. Tell me about civic centers that have been built. Tell me about how they have improved communities. Tell me about how they have improved community relations. Tell me about anything that Black Lives Matter has done. And I don't want general things. I need specifics in any of these major low-income areas by which we were so concerned about. So now here it is in 2022, and we found out by the filings of Black Lives Matter that Black Lives Matter took in a whopping $90 million. $90 million can make a lot of change. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter paid her brother $840,000 per tax documents. He was hired to help with security, as organizers did not trust other firms with this matter, even though her brother had started that security company 2.5 years before. She paid him $840,000. Had nowhere near the acumen, the skill set, or the structure of a company to demand an $840,000 contract for security services, by which he had just entered into 2 years later. The tax filings detailed how the foundation spent much of the $90 million received in donation, line by line. And when I say much, I mean $72 million of the $90 million on overhead. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation used donated funds to pay her brother $840,000 for professional services or security services, according to tax documents filed with the IRS. Black Lives Matter is a 501c3. The filing showed that Patrisse Cullors, the organization's one-time executive director, paid the sum of Cullors Protection, a company owned by her brother, Paul Cullors. So Patricia, the one at the top, one of the three founders, talk about her in a little bit. We've talked about her many times before. You guys know her name. Paid her brother, Paul, $840,000. Almost $1 million of donated funds to her brother. Patrisse Cullors is also a graffiti artist, according to the artist description on the Crenshaw Daily Mart. The artist collective, co-founded by Patrisse Cullors, was previously cited in a New York magazine as BLM's head of security, talking about Paul Cullors. $840,000 goes to this man, Paul Cullors. It doesn't stop there. According to the tax filings, the organization also paid $969,000 for a live event design and media production by Trap Hills LLC, a company founded by Damon Turner, the baby daddy of Patrisse Cullors. So she gives her brother $840,000, gives her the father of her child $969,000 for him to host a live event design and media production by his company, Trap Hills LLC. Trap Hills LLC was founded 2 years before he got this donation, or before he was hired to do Black Lives Matter. That's $1.7 million if you know how to add. That was donated to say, man, y'all do some stuff for Black America, because y'all are running around with the moniker that Black Lives Matter. Let's make Black lives better. According to an exclusive published in the AP in February of last year, the BLM Foundation received around $90 million in 2020 alone. In 1 year, $90 million. Several Black activists and supporters of the movement call for more transparency on how the money was being spent given to Black Lives Matter. So if you know anything about Black Lives Matter, you got the organization and then you have subsections. You got chapters of Black Lives Matter. There are 34 chapter leaders that are calling for more transparency in the spending of dollars going into Black Lives Matter. Hold on. Let me pull this up because I want to make sure that I tell you exactly what this looks like. So here we are. Ms. Patrisse Cullors, who is one of the three founders of Black Lives Matter, in 2016, she bought a home in Inglewood, California for $510,000, 2016. 2018, Cullors purchased a $590,000 house in South Los Angeles. In 2020, Cullors purchased a $415,000 custom ranch in Collier's, Georgia, featuring a private airplane hangar. In 2021, Cullors purchased a $1.4 million home in the exclusive Los Angeles neighborhood of Topanga Canyon. In 2021, BLM Canada, the subchapter, purchased a 3-story, $6.3 million Victoria mansion in Toronto, Canada. In 2022, BLM spent nearly $6 million of the $90 million to purchase a 6,500 square foot California mansion. You draw your own conclusions, do whatever you need to do. Here it is, this organization that I told you was taking advantage of the emotions of Black people. And I've been saying this for years. Black people are always the pawn to everybody's agenda. Unfortunately, this generation, post our ancestors, are highly emotional, and they know us to a T, that all they got to do is get us riled up and we'll take them to wherever they want to go. We will achieve whatever political agenda that they have, whatever social agenda that they have. We will do that simply by angsting Black people. Because we got buzzwords, systematic racism. We got buzzwords. Anytime you mention racism around Black people, you excite them to a degree. And as I sit here and try to give you facts that everybody could find out, I was met with fierce opposition, which I can handle. But my thing was, you can find this information out for yourself. Like this stuff is available for you to know. This is not just something that I'm saying. You can find this information out yourself. So when I sat there and I said, man, this is the reason I stand against Black Lives Matter. Because first of all lives matter. That statement, oh, see, you ain't down for the cause. Oh, you ain't down for the cause. I'm asking you the question, does all life matter? All life does matter. Black, white, purple, green, yellow, it don't make a difference. All life matter. Right. So when the all life matter people were saying all lives matter, not in contradiction to Black Lives Matter, but just saying, hey, if we're trying to get rid of racism, why are we exclusively talking about one race? But then Black Lives Matter comes in and says, here it is. This is the train that we're going to hitch our wagon to. This is going to take us into the promised land. And black folks who were well-intended got bamboozled by an organization that did not have their best interests in mind. There was a time in which you could have said that I said, I support Black Lives Matter, the movement, but I don't support Black Lives Matter, the organization. That was a point in time in 2020 where you could make a clear distinction. And several of my colleagues, several of my friends said the exact same thing. Man, we support, let's talk about systematic change. Let's talk about crack reform laws. Let's talk about education in low income areas. Let's talk about over policing in low income areas. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about multiple year sentences for non-violent offenses. Let's sit down at the table and talk about that. And when all of this stuff was going on, it was a perfect time to sit and get new legislation passed because everybody was listening on the heels of George Floyd. So we said, man, we support the Black Lives Matter, the movement. Let's talk about that stuff. Let's get on board with that stuff. But the Black Lives Matter, the organization, man, throw that stuff in the garbage. And that was in 2020 where you could have made a logical conversation about the movement versus the organization. You can't do that now. Those lines have been completely blurred. You can no longer say I support the movement and not the organization, or the organization and not the movement. The lines have been blurred. There is no such distinction right now in 2022. Black Lives Matter, the organization, the thing that's fanned the flames of all of this, is a sham. And black folks still have not benefited from anything Black Lives Matter. I take you to Colin Kaepernick, this young man who had a promising career in the NFL and who had an opportunity to do some good. His movement got hijacked by progressives and elites. His movement, by bringing attention to some issues by which he saw he needed to do, police brutality, taking a knee. And then he got with a former military personnel guy, and the guy said, listen, before you disrespect the flag and turn around, because he originally wanted to turn his back while they were doing the national anthem. But he got with an Army vet, and he said, the Army vet said the most respectful way to do this is by taking a knee. He did that. That, in and of itself, was fine, because people died for that man to take a knee. People died for him to digress or for him to have an opinion that was different from others. Nobody had an issue with that. The problem is that his original intent got hijacked, and Colin Kaepernick got paid off. Colin Kaepernick tried to turn himself into the Black Malcolm X when he is not. 6 months ago, I told you about the documentary that he did on Netflix referring to the NFL as slave owners, buying black men at slave auctions. You can go back and look at it right now in the Colin Kaepernick special on Netflix, where Colin Kaepernick responded or portrayed the NFL and their owners and all of those who are in high fluent positions in the NFL as slave buyers. Can you tell me why now Colin Kaepernick is working out for the Raiders? You just sat there and told me that the NFL buys slaves. And that when we're going through the combine, it is like slave owners sitting up there buying slaves, talking about how much body fat they got, how high they can jump, how fast they can run. You just sit there and compare the NFL to slavery, but yet you go work out for an NFL team. Y'all don't see that. What are we talking about? So now you are voluntarily going back into the same system that you said is evil. This is what we be talking about when we do foolishness like this. When people who are highly emotional, and man, if you've had any conversations with emotional people, it is a dead conversation. Facts don't matter to emotional people. And so I am not an emotional person. I try my best to take a step back. It doesn't work all the time, but I try to take a step back and say, okay, what's this all about? So in 2020, I said, go back and look at the tape, that Black Lives Matter was a detriment to the black community, and that this organization was going to do zero in the progression of the black agenda, the black experience, the black culture. Zero. The parents of Michael Brown have sued BLM because he said, the father of Michael Brown, hands up, that guy, that BLM made a profit off of his son's loss. And they have not done anything in the areas of Baltimore. Zero, zilch, nada. Have poured no funds into low impoverished communities. Nothing. So when I said, man, hold on. Let's talk about this. Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, these people would be turning over in their graves about how we address social issues. And this whole thing about the internet and everybody got a voice, man, this stuff is crazy. This stuff is crazy. So when I said, man, hold on, do you know about BLM? Do you know about it? Do you know what they stand for? Do you know that the principles in BLM directly go against the advancement of black people? They're making it known. They're not even trying to hide this stuff. So $90 million later, how is the black community better? Take any black community. Take DC, take Baltimore, take Chicago, take Houston, take Florida, name whatever community you want. And tell me how it's better. Tell me how Black Lives Matter. Now watch this. In 2020, the NBA, the NFL, all of them jumped on the bandwagon. Man, we got to ride this thing. This is just too much of a wave for us not to be a part of. You remember Black Lives Matter on the side of the basketball courts in the NBA. This is when they were in the bubble. You know, the players are putting slogans on the back of their jersey. Your boy Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, said in November of 2021, we will no longer support those kind of political messages on our platform, as seeing that they are highly divisive in the culture by which we are trying to unite. So if you've noticed any basketball court this postseason, this basketball season, you ain't seen Black Lives Matter on the court. You ain't seen slogans on the back of the jerseys. You ain't seen none of that. It's all gone. It's gone. Where did it go? Because people will say, hold on, let's follow the money. Follow the money. The money's going to tell you everything you need to know. So I want to know how BLM, the one that everybody was ranting and raving about, how has it made our lives better? What type of legislation has been paid, has been passed? $90 million, we can hire some lobbyists. We can hire some lobbyists the same way the energy companies do, the same way the pharmaceutical companies do. They hire lobbyists to go down to D.C. and to champion their cause. We haven't hired any lobbyists. We haven't hired anybody about prison reform. We haven't hired anybody to get rid of the 1988 crack laws. What that law is still on the books. 3 strikes and you're out. That law is still on the books. That law is still on the books to this very day. People that are selling marijuana have gotten multiple decade sentences. People who have murdered people have gotten less sentences than people who have sold marijuana. Those laws are still on the books right now. We didn't get any of that stuff eradicated. But they got $90 million. 90 million, big ones. So this thing was, I hope that you guys are opening up your eyes to this. I really hope you do, because I am a person that believes that God loves all people. But unfortunately, there's some bad apples out there, and there's bad apples in every single demographic. But black folks, let me tell you something. We are quickly becoming and will become, I need you to hear me on this, the permanent underclass of America. I went to a graduation on Friday. The school will remain nameless. Went to a very nice graduation to where this young man graduated cum laude, top 20% of his class, has done some great things. But as I go to this class, I think it was probably about 150 or so graduates. And this young man has done a tremendous job of taking care of his business, young black guy, taking care of his business, doing his work, keeping his head down, and got out of school with great honors. But as I was at that particular graduation, the audience was probably 60 to 65% Hispanic. Easily. As a matter of fact, they did Spanish and English in the translation. At one point, in one part of the graduation service, it was all in Spanish. Like, I'm sitting there for like 10 minutes having no idea of what is being said. Like zero. And this is in a well-established college, and this is a great school, but 60 to 65%, maybe even higher than that, was Hispanic. The valedictorian was Asian. The salutatorian was Hispanic, and those in magna cum laude and cum laude, probably about 80% of those were Hispanic. Yeah. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at all of this. And I'm looking at the new census data that came out in December of last year, to where blacks, who were once at 14.3% of the population, have now gone down to 13.9. Hispanics that were at 14.6, get on the census.gov and get those exact numbers, but they're now up to almost 18. Almost up to 18%. Black population in America is going down. Hispanic population is going up. The white population went from 73 to around 69%. Even Asians went up in population in the United States. The only populace in the United States of America that decreased in numbers were African Americans. The only demographic. With white America. But at 69%, they're still far outpacing everybody else. African Americans went down in population. You know what else I seen when I was at that graduation? I saw a lot of Hispanics, and all of them had babies. All of them. Because they're populating. You know who one of the leaders to abortions and abortion clinics, who are the purveyors and the customers of Planned Parenthood? Black folks. Yeah. To the tune of 1.8 million babies are being aborted every single year in the United States alone. Black folks make up 43% of that number. 43% of it. And so I've always asked people, man, you're concerned about black lives, but yet you support abortion. Where black lives are being slaughtered every single day. Where Planned Parenthood is in 91% of all Planned Parenthood clinics are in low income areas with people that look like this. Yeah, but you're concerned about black lives, but you're not protesting Planned Parenthood, where black lives are being slaughtered with the vacuum process. And I've been thinking about this. Me and my wife, we're very, very passionate about this abortion thing. We are unabashedly pro-life. And I've been thinking about, having my wife on and what's doing a real in-depth look into abortion. And because I don't think people understand what abortion is. Abortion is not a right. It's not a right. You don't have the right to kill people. Abortion is barbaric. You do know that in abortion they suck the baby out through a vacuum. There's a fetus inside of a woman. That's for another story. That's for another time. So when I'm trying to ask black people about Black Lives Matter, black people don't want to, and I'm not saying all black people, not saying all black people. Of course, I'm not saying all black people, but we don't want to have those hard, concrete conversations. And when I sit up here at this particular podium, this table, and say, man, listen, life is about some decisions that you make. You burned down cities over George Floyd, but you did nothing for Tamir Rice. You didn't burn down nothing for Tamir Rice, and he was 12. But you burned down the nation for George Floyd. You put statues up in front of City Hall for George Floyd. You did nothing for Tamir Rice. You did nothing for Jacob Alexander, the guy in California who got shot up at his graduation party getting ready to go to Yale by some gang members who lost his life at the hands of other black people. You said nothing about him. And see, black lives don't matter when they're taken by other black lives. But black lives matter when they're taken by white folks and by cops. But look at the data, y'all. We killing ourselves. The most dangerous place in America is not in Third Ward. It's not in Watts. It's not on the south side of Chicago for a black man. The most dangerous place in America for a black man is inside the mother's womb, because that's where all the killing is taking place. And so when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, what exactly are we talking about? What exactly are we talking about when we say Black Lives Matter? Do Black Lives Matter? I believe that they do. I believe God says Black Lives Matter. I do believe that God says Hispanic lives matter, Asian lives matter, white lives matter. Therefore, all lives matter. But when are we going to start doing when are we as black folks going to stop letting people use us the way that they do? And we get nothing in return. Nothing. You get nothing in return. You get nothing in return. But I ask, as you are looking and trying to find all of these things in regards to this organization, that you do your own research. You do your own research, you come to your own conclusions, you figure out what's right, what's not, you figure out the ebbs and flows, and you do your own research. This stuff is readily available if you've got a computer or a smartphone. I am still sounding the alarm that black folks are I believe this to the depths of my being. Your greatest enemy is always the person looking back at you in the mirror. Your greatest adversary is always the person looking back at you in the mirror. I know too many people and I'll end with this. I know too many people who have overcome hell and high water through A all the way to Z. Name whatever problem you want to name. I just witnessed a young man on Friday graduate cum laude whose life hasn't been as perfect as some would like. But this young man has the world in his hand and is getting ready to do some tremendous things in life. I'm just tired of black folks always being the pawn to everybody else's agenda when we don't have to be. When we don't have to be. We don't have to be. So it's not my intent to argue with people, which I don't. 50 years old really brings about a change in your mind. Really brings about a change in how you want to spend your time. And so arguing is not one of the ways in which I want to spend this blessed time that I have left here on this earth. But I do want to try to bring people to a place to where we can start having some real dialogue, right? And start really challenging the status quo. And so when I'm saying stuff about Black Lives Matter, it's not that I don't think it's a great idea. I think, in the lineage of people that have fought for the rights of black people, who love black people and want an equal and level playing field, I believe that we still have a lot of work that we need to do. We got a lot of work that we need to still do. A lot of work. But organizations like this set us back eons. Organizations like this that have fleeced the flock sets us back eons. Black Lives Matter is not an organization that cares for black people. Black Lives Matter is an organization that advances the LGBT movement. That is exactly what it is, from front to back to center. It is an organization that promotes and affirms and tries to progress the LGBT movement. That is what it is. Go back to September of 2020, you'll hear me say the exact same thing. Black Lives Matter is not concerned with having fathers in homes. Black Lives Matter is not concerned about the nuclear family. Black Lives Matter is not concerned with patriarchal practices. They're not concerned with any of that. Black Lives Matter says we foster a queer affirming network, that when we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of the heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless he or she disclose otherwise. Black Lives Matter is directly responsible for gender reassociation. They are directly responsible for this now movement that has become the fabric of life, to where people can decide on a whim whether they're a girl or whether they're a boy, when their science and their biology says completely opposite to what comes out of their mouth. Black Lives Matter is on the forefront of this movement. They disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. We disrupt that. We don't want nuclear family. If you're any type of a historian, if you're any type of researcher, you will understand that the disruption of the nuclear family has decimated the black community when fathers are not in the home. 74% of all new births in the African American community are to out of wedlock parents. And they make it their point to disrupt the nuclear family. We build a space that affirms black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered. We got to get rid of this male leadership thing. Have you not heard within the last couple of years, I am woman, hear me roar. I don't need a man. I don't need a man for this. I don't need a man for that. I can do my own thing. Black Lives Matter. That's what they set out to do. Get rid of the male leadership. Get it out of the way. They're not biblical, so I don't expect them to know Mark chapter 3, verse 27, that you got to first bind the strong man before you can go into his house and plunder his goods. You got to get the man out of the way so that the rest of the family is easy prey. This is the last one I'm going to tell you. We are a self-reflective and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. That's in their mission statement. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to dismantle cisgender privilege, this male-female thing. We finna get rid of that. And we're going to uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women, who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. All you gotta do is go to the FBI Bureau of Statistics, and they will tell you that Black trans folk in 2021 had a total of, here's the number, had a total of 138 instances of where the police had to be called. But BLM says Black trans women, not Black folks, not interaction with cops, not the gangs on the street, none of that stuff. Black trans folk are disproportionately affected by trans antagonistic violence. That's what we're going after. We're not going after Black folks that get into altercations like George Floyd with Derek Chauvin and ultimately get killed. That's not who we're after. Now, we're going to ride that train to get our agenda across. But we're talking about Black trans folk. They have been an LGBT movement from the beginning, and they are continually an LGBT movement right now, as inclusive of two out of the three of their founders, who are both married to transgender men. But yet you're wearing Black Lives Matter on your shirt. So you can go to the irs.gov. You can the newly reported filing, which covers the period of July the 1st, 2020 to June 2021, was given exclusively to the AP and showed that the organization received $79 million in that time. The document said that the foundation has $42 million in net assets. The filing stated that BLM invested $32 million in stocks, mutual funds, and bonds. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. So what does all of this mean? Black folks, we've been had, we've been duped. We're always looking for somebody else to fight our battle. And I have said, man, and I have prayed about this, the voices that my mom had, my aunt, a Malcolm X, a Martin Luther King, a Medgar Evers, which are three of my favorites. Okay, you even go back to W.E. Du Bois, and people that actually stood for something, people that risked life and limb. Like I did a whole podcast on MLK. I did a whole podcast on what that brother turned down in order to lead the civil rights movement, to get us the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. What he turned down, what he lost, the financial gain that he pushed off the table because he had a bigger agenda ahead of him. Those voices have been gone. They're gone. Those voices are gone. I don't know how we get them back. I don't know where we go from here, but I will tell you this. Just like John the Baptist was a lone voice crying out in the wilderness, he was crying out when everybody was calling him foolish and ignorant. I do believe that there's some people out there that have been drowned out because of all the noise. And everybody, I'm just saying to us as black folk, do we still have work to do? Yes. But you have to be seriously disingenuous to not know and understand the overwhelming progress that Black America has made. I'm not going to be defined. I'm not going to honor a George Floyd statue. I don't know anybody. I don't hang around George Floyds in my life. I know many other people that deserve a statue. Like if you want to put Black excellence up, I know many other people that are afforded an opportunity to get a statue. But I'm not finna honor that. Is it tragic? Is it illegal? Is it a murder that happened to the man? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is something that I know y'all don't want to hear. His life was not lived in an honorable fashion. He's right here in Third Ward, right outside of the CUNY homes. And we know that whole little group over there. But Tamir Rice was 12. Had a little toy gun. Had his whole life ahead of him. Brother Alexander, on his way to Yale, on a full academic scholarship. To those who say, man, you don't know, my daughter, for their track season, runs with a young lady. Shout out to Megan. Megan, who is an African-American female, just got a full academic and athletic scholarship to Harvard University. They ain't just passing those things out. I know Megan, I know her mom, I know her sister. She got a full academic and athletic scholarship to Harvard University. You guys know, now this is self-serving, a proud dad moment. But my daughter, Faith, is being scouted by West Point for a track scholarship at West Point. So when I tell you that the people that I hang around don't readily rely on excuses, they're out there pushing the envelope and doing what they need to do. Why don't you want to put a statue of Megan? She deserves it. She worked her tail off. Never been in trouble with the law. Never been stopped by police. Doesn't have a record. Why don't we want to honor those guys? Why don't we want to honor the guys who are doing it the right way? Yeah. Crazy, man. So, everybody, God is good. God is good. All right, everybody, pardon that moment of reflection. There's literally, I'm looking at these notes right now. There are 7 pages. I'm only got through page 2 of information that any and everybody could find out. So, with that said, everybody, I don't want to belabor this point. Black folks, you are stronger than what everybody's saying that you are. You can accomplish more than what people say that you can. Yes, you're going to face some challenges. Yes, you're going to face some trials. Yes, you're going to face some people that don't like you. Yes, you're going to face some people that's trying to stop you. X, Y, and Z. All will be true. All will be true. All will be true. However, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You can do it. You can do whatever you set your mind to do. Good things. You can start that business. You can go back to school. You can get that degree. You can get that master's. You can get that PhD. You can do whatever you want to do. You can do whatever you want to do. Stop letting people tell you what you can't do because you black. If God before you is more than the entire world against you, when the enemy comes in like a flood, God raises up a standard against them. Those are all promises that are not just for white folks or Hispanics or for Asian or for black folks. They are for all of God's people. All of God's people. So everybody, without me belaboring this point too long, thank you. We're almost at that 10,000, man. It seems like it's taking forever for us to get there, but I need you guys to go ahead and get on there. And then there's this little button on the there's this little button on the YouTube especially. This is on the YouTube especially, and it's a little button that's got a little heart on it that says that says give. If you want to support us, you're more than welcome to do that on our YouTube, on our Facebook, and on our Instagram. Make sure that you like, comment, follow. Get all up in them comments. Tell me you're crazy. Tell me you're this. Tell me you're that. Let's engage. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on the set of Studio B. Until we see you next week, God bless you.